everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Taylor Wolford. I'm a Special Collections Librarian here at NC State University Libraries, and I'm joined today by Phil McDonald, my colleague, who is also a Special Collections Librarian. And today we are unbelievably excited to talk to you about some interesting rare books and manuscript materials that we have related to the history of bees and beekeeping. So to get us started today, Phil is going to go into one of our first materials that we've pulled, which is from our rare books and manuscript collection.
So here we have a catalog. So the English translation is Illustrated Catalog of Root Equipment for Beekeepers. And A.I. Root was started as a jewelry smith, but then eventually went into making beekeeping supplies. And he's considered one of the first people to build like modern beekeeping hives that we see today. And the big thing about A.I. Root is that he created apparently the ABCs of bee culture, which is considered now the Beekeepers' Bible. And yeah, please open it up. And so this one's in Spanish, so we're assuming that this is a catalog to be sent to Spanish-speaking countries. If you can see on front, it's from Medina, Ohio, is where the company took place. And so it's got these like beautiful, like detailed drawings of beekeeping supplies. Stuff you would see at the turn of the century. This one came out in 1918, and about 2 years later, two of A.I. Root's, I don't know their relation, but they are also Roots. So I assume either grandchildren kind of transformed the company. Now they solely do beehive, beeswax candles, and so apparently the company is a world-renowned beeswax candle company that's known for its purity and quality, as the website says. One cool kind of tidbit that we found looking up some of the work of A.I. Root is that he started a magazine for bee culture and beekeeping culture called Gleanings in Bee Culture in 1873, and it's still published today. But one of the cool kind of factoids about the magazine is that in January of 1905, the magazine contained the first account of the Wright brothers' first full circle flight in Dayton, Ohio. If you notice, I didn't say any time before 1903, so that still definitely means that NC is first in flight.
No. Phil and I have this long-going debate about whether or not Ohio or North Carolina was first in flight.
Yeah.
So just to note, the first full circle flight was in Dayton, Ohio, which was cataloged in originally a beekeeping journal by A.I. Which
is fascinating that would be in the. And at the end, you could also see that it's as you can see, it's to translate, it's the ABCs and XYZs of beekeeping in Spanish. And so I thought it was really cool that they also have different books on beekeeping in Spanish, English, and even in French. So this is a trilingual company, or trying to have as far a reach as possible. So yeah, this is a really cool kind of like early beekeeping or early 20th century beekeeping in the catalog, that you can kind of see how, like, I love these old beekeeping, what would you call it? What are they called? Like hats or,
I think so.
Masks,
Masks, yeah.
Yeah, so this was like the first kind of cool find of this like catalog from the 1920s, which now is over 100 years old. And I love this beautiful colored bee on the front.
Yeah, when we were going through looking for materials, I did not expect to find beekeeping materials that were in any language other than English.
Sure, this was a surprise.
Certainly, like early beekeeping culture is very pronounced in Europe and in England. But when we saw this, we were immediately like, oh, we have to do this, because it speaks a lot to the diversity of perhaps the beekeeping community that has not been described as much in the history of beekeeping. So I was really glad we found some demonstration of how the Spanish-speaking community has been involved in beekeeping for just as long as the English-speaking community, which is really great.
And we're getting some mentions of our shirt. This was completely happenstance, serendipitous. We did not plan to wear matching striped shirts today, but we both did because we were talking about bees today.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for the shout outs.
Thank
It
you.
is definitely ended up being a bee themed shirts, as Virginia says.
Yeah, Phil and I are just so in sync. We dress together at the same time automatically. So our next item, super, super cool. It's actually another item from our rare books collection. And this one is from 1744. So it's quite an old text from our collections. Go ahead and pull up the first page here. There we go. Super beautiful illustrations on the front. So this book is called The Female Monarchy, and it was first published in London in 1744 by Reverend John Thorley. So the reason I picked this book is because there is a really interesting intersection with beekeeping history and with gender studies, which at first glance does not seem to be very well connected. I'm getting there. But so prior to the 1600s, it was assumed and sort of portrayed in the scientific community that the head of the hive was not a queen bee, but a king bee. And that bee hives were sort of this demonstration of the perfect monarchy, which in early modern England meant a king was, in charge of the monarchy. So around 1600s, you have works coming out, such as The Feminine Monarchy by entomologist Charles Butler, in which he was explaining, scientifically, we know that it is a queen bee who's reproducing for the hive. So he sort of was the first to call them queen bees and question why we were referring to them as kings. And by we, I mean the entomologists of the time. So this is expounding upon Charles Butler's work, Reverend Thurley here, by reorienting the leader of the hive as a female monarchy. And his perspective in this text is the ways in which the bees are sort of this biblical example of how society should be run. So that's another really interesting intersection is religious studies. And he makes a lot of comparisons between the belief of a divine, being or realm, and how a hive is constructed and how a hive communicates with one another. So it's a really, really great text from the 1800s. I love this, and there is also a really beautiful illustration, I think in the back. There was, or maybe it was in the front. Yes, okay, so this is the, this front page here is, this particular illustration is really well known and well distributed amongst early scholars in early modern England who were discussing this. And yeah, like I said, it's just really interesting because there seemed to be this intellectual crisis in the 17th and 18th century about whether or not it was acceptable for a female bee to run a hive, which parallels really well with I think cultural and social assumptions of the time about feminine and masculine ideals and power. So super cool. I love this. I mean, if we had the time, it would be really cool to read through some of the passages. The belief of the divine revelation is necessary to give its influence upon us. So yeah, it's like I said, it's saying that the word of God is similar to the word of the queen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is fascinating, thinking about how a monarchy is structured with the people of the time. So I really love this work, and I think that's a really cool connection both between gender studies and entomology and social constructs. So that's why I pulled it. I really, really love this book. And all of these books are available for research if anyone's interested. We can put a link in the chat for how to access special collections materials. And you can comb through some of the text that's in that book there. Okay, the next book we have, I'm very excited because it's a little bit more interactive. And by that, I mean it's a pop-up book.
You can even maybe hold it up.
Yeah, you want to hold it up?
Sure. Oh, yeah, totally.
So we have at NC State a really interesting research and study collection of pop-up books. And they were selected from a larger collection of pop-up books that we have that were donated to the libraries. So we, luckily for our stream today, happen to have a book about bees, which is really cool. And I love this demonstration of book history, of book form, because there's engineering that goes into this. Like, I didn't realize there are both paper science engineers, as in engineers who create paper, different forms of paper for us, but there's also paper engineers who create structures out of paper or similar paper materials. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So that was, in my research, that was a major differentiation they made, was that there's paper engineers and there's paper science engineers. So a lot goes into creating a book like this. You not only have to have the author who's writing the text, you have to have a paper engineer who's able to manufacture this and make it a part of the book, and you have to have illustrators. So it's a really interesting collaborative process that's also in a lot of ways interdisciplinary. I think it'd be really cool to make a pop-up book one day. That would be really cool, maybe like a workshop idea.
I was going to say, that could be a workshop.
Yeah, creating pop-up books, because there's an art and a science to it, which is really cool. So this is actually written by an entomologist, Dr. Norden, who worked at the Smithsonian Department of Natural History for 15 years, and she was really fascinated in educating the public, and specifically children, about beekeeping and bees in their anatomy, to sort of, garner respect for them. At a time where it was really important that conservation of bees was prioritized. So I love this book, and there's a lot of other little cool pop-ups here, like with the early hives in the modern framing. And what's on that side?
So there's wings, like you can wings that show like the different, and this has like a different kind of like a anatomy, like pointing. This is the tongue, stuff like that. And then here is a nest. So this is how like bees would, bumblebees specifically would maybe create a nest in like a bale of hay.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of that one. And this one is nectar rubbing. So this is describing like how a bumblebee uses its tongue to grab nectar from a flower. So, let's see.
Wow, can you go back to the
which one?
The hay one?
Yeah.
That's really cool to me, because I follow this TikToker who she goes through and she rescues bees she's actually a bee conservator, so she goes around to places where bees typically are not the safest.
Oh, okay.
Like a bale of hay, or I don't know, like at a baseball diamond, or in someone's abandoned dumpster in a backyard. Like there's a lot of places that bees sort of make their habitat, and I really like in this book that they included sort of an example of the different habitats that bees can be drawn to. That's really
I had no
cool.
idea.
Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, we could totally do the next one. So this will take a little bit of setup. So we are going to show some, they're about 100 years old glass slides. So these slides you would see possibly in like a lecture, at a university, from about, these slides are from like 1920 to the late 1930s. And so can you grab that box and let me turn this on and see how that looks. There we go. Okay, so a little bit about, so this is from the Theodore B. Mitchell papers. Talking with one of my colleagues, Todd, apparently Theodore B. Mitchell was like Mr. B back in the day. And so he was born in 1890 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and attended Massachusetts Agriculture College, which is now UMass Amherst. He graduated with a BS in a BS degree in 1920. He also served in the U.S. Army as a band sergeant, spending 1 year in France during World War I. But the reason he came here is he was employed by North Carolina Department of Agriculture in 1920 as a assistant entomologist, and he conducted a bunch of field surveys and actually obtained his MS from North Carolina State College of Agriculture and Engineering, now NC State. And then he completed his SD, so science doctorate at Harvard in 1928. And then so he joined the faculty here at State in 1925, and then reached the rank of full professor in 1938. So he created a bunch of, he was basically the bee person at State, and he gave special attention given to bees throughout his career, culminating, so his kind of life work was the publication of Bees of Eastern United States, a 2-volume manual on the entire bee fauna. So again, kind of why he's called Mr. Bee. And so he has these like beautiful, I'm grabbing them right now out of our box. He has these beautiful photographs of different types of bees. So this one, let's see. Here we go. So this is a leaf cutter bee. And so you could see it kind of going into the leaf, and you could see, I wonder if I can, there we go.
Perfect.
So right here you could see that this bee is cutting into the leaf, eating it, and enjoying themselves. So right here we have a slide of a bumblebee.
Oh.
There it is. It's kind of hard to tell, but the bumblebee's right here on, what are these? Here's some more bumblebees. Just on, so this is on like what are those called? Black-eyed Susans.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another bumblebee on a flower. Let me push that up. Oh, okay. I just, we got Emily from Preservations that would be into doing a pop-up workshop. So stay tuned.
I'm very intrigued by that.
Stay tuned, live stream. We will hopefully have that sometime in the near future. So yeah, so these would have been used as a presentation. Other glass slides in this specific collection itself also have like information, like so like they'll do like the whole genus of bees in a slide, and so it's not just all pictures. So which one is this? This is 52. This is a honeybee.
Honeybee.
So honeybee, and then right next to it we got a male Carpenter Bee right here.
These are really well done.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised by the date. So the slides in his collection are from 1920 to 1939,
Yeah.
so it could be within that time period, but I thought these looked amazing.
They're so beautiful.
And here's another, let me push these out of the way, another
I think like
bumblebee.
these demonstrate to me is the beauty of bees.
Totally.
I'm not going to say they're underappreciated because I'm a huge fan of bees, but they're such beautiful creatures, and these are such beautiful representations of them. Doing what is really necessary for us to survive, which is pollinate our plants and our crops. So shout out to bees for always being there for us.
Is that the first pun?
It's like the third.
It's the third. Okay,
Yeah,
I need to
it's the third.
pay better attention. So also in this collection, he also has kind of like not dissected, but like presented types of bees and insects. These are specifically bees, like the heads and side views. And in a different collection, we have some like microscopic photos of like a bee tongue that we'll show in a little bit. But let me see.
These items were discovered in the offices and labs of the Department of Entomology. So shout out to them for their contributions, their continued contributions to the Special Collections Department, a lot of which we'll be talking about today.
Yes.
But I think that's another really interesting of working in the archives is we are always discovering these treasures, these things that maybe were hidden at one point and that we're bringing to light, really significant aspects of NC State's history. Which I love to see, given that background context, we now know where we got it from and how it can be used for researchers moving forward.
Yes, I'm just going to slide that over. And yeah, that's the glass slides.
It's really pretty.
And let's move this out of the way.
All All right, so next we are moving on to more contributions from the Department of Entomology. They actually have, we have a collection here at NC State that is the Department of Entomology drawings and papers. So these are illustrations from the department that depict thousands of species of insects and their taxonomy, and were collected from the department from 1967 to 1990. They were rendered through a variety of processes, and they were produced by independent artists hired by the department, as well as entomology faculty here at NC State and the United States Department of Agriculture. So we can go ahead and pull some of these.
Yeah, go for it. And I can also zoom out if needed. You also got another Sugar Bear 1 is asking if those are bees on your overalls.
They are bees on my overalls. Thank you for noticing. Always
there we go.
Represent the bees. So these are some of the drawings that were commissioned by the entomology department for, I guess, probably more scientific study and education. Learning the taxonomy of bees and their anatomy is really this is a great tool for that in terms of illustration. So I pulled these because I liked that you get to see some of the history of the Department of Entomology with these. This drawing here, some of these drawings, and the ones that I have on the front here, were actually created by an entomology professor at NC State. So Dr. Baker, JRB, that's his signature on these papers, was a entomologist with an extension appointment at NC State. We have a really great extension history with the university and with beekeeping and bees. So he was involved in some of the extension work with bees. And he was also responsible for training extension agents, growers, landscapers, and other horticulturists on how to maintain bee populations, which is super, super cool. So he has that interest, and he's also contributing artwork. Again, really interesting to me is that interdisciplinary aspect of scientific discovery and of scientific research, is that they're artists. This is art. This is beautiful art. And it's not something that, from a humanities perspective, I would have expected a scientist to be really skilled at. But Dr. Baker has contributed numerous illustrations and materials in this collection and in others. So you can see sort of all the iterations of how they depict bees and perhaps how they would get it set up for a publication or like a textbook possibly through this different forms that they have included here with the illustrations.
And then all of these are also wild bees, correct?
Yes, they are also wild bees. One of them is actually a species of wasp in the family plaster bees. Let me see. I believe it's this one.
And to kind of go back to what you were saying, like when I was looking at some of these drawings from the entomology department, a lot of them are also from, like, I think one like architecture student in the College of Design also helped out with these and showing again like the interdisciplinarity of like this collection and like what scientists do, kind of really using this visual art form to promote that. It really shows the different aspects of being a scientist and the benefit of working at a place like State where you have design students that this is what they do, this is what they love to do. So
So this bee right here is actually a plaster bee, and they're called plaster or cellophane bees because of their method of smoothing the walls of their nest cells with secretions that are applied through their mouth parts, and these secretions dry into a cellophane-like lining. I think a lot of times when people think of bees, they think of honeybees.
100%.
But there is a very large taxonomy of bee species out there, and that's why I was emphasizing this one so much by Dr. Baker, because there is a lot of different types of bees that contribute to our ecosystem in really fascinating ways. So shout out to the plaster bees.
To all bees.
To all bees. All bees. True. next up, we have another really interesting aspect of NC State's history, and these are materials from the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association, which is an organization that was formed in 1917 and has grown into one of the largest beekeeping associations in the United States. I actually processed this collection, so I have a little bit of a personal connection to it. So the North Carolina Beekeepers Association is very active in the local community and with our extension work in our entomology department. And they are also actively involved at things like Bug Fest in Raleigh. If anyone's ever been to Bug Fest, it's a really, really fun event that the libraries has worked with in the past, as well as National Bee Day, and they are always a presence at the state fair, at the beekeeping and the bee section of the agriculture part of the state fair. So certainly go check out the bee stations at the state fair. Is really cool. But what we have here is actually a collection of recipes that were collected by a former president of the North Carolina Beekeepers Association. This would be J.D. Faust's materials of honey recipes, and he. Oh,
keep going. It's just
okay.
the light. It's not the.
So he has a really interesting collection of recipes here that I wanted to pull because I think that's another really interesting aspect of bee production is their honey. I thought it would be important to talk about that as well. So this one right here is a honey sampler, and it goes over the different areas that honey is produced and sort of the history of bees. There's a lot of really interesting ones. This one is about honey recipes specifically for your honey, our Valentine's Day-esque themed article. I actually wrote a blog post about some of these earlier honey recipes since this collection contains recipes from the 1950s to the 2000s. So it's a really interesting look into food recipes across time and how honey has been made in many different ways and forms. There's also a lot of materials here from the American Honey Institute and other significant organizations. This one is a recipe from the 50s. We have a couple here from the 50s. Applesauce cake, honey nut brownies, which I feel like someone in our department should probably make, and honeyed fruit punch. There was a really interesting article here that talked about the different applications of honey and what it could be used for. This was sort of obviously an advertisement, but it was arguing that honey is really beneficial for pregnant women, for athletes, for like professionals on the go. They were really touting honey as like a be-all cure-all for people, which is really interesting. And it also, these also contain a lot of nutritional facts about honey, including some of the nutritional benefits and their sugar content. So I think in terms of like food history, this could be really beneficial to see over time the different ways that honey has been incorporated into our food and into baking. I love baking. And one of these articles actually suggests ways that you can use honey instead of sugar in all of your baked goods too. So that's a really cool look into honey history.
Awesome. Even speaking of honey history, even on the sampler at the top, they have like honey in ancient Egypt or ancient Greece. They have like early colonists beekeeping in the Americas.
That's a really good point because that's what I think is.
So it looks like that bees have always
bees make you stronger.
Yeah, but that idea is not relatively new.
Yeah, that's a really good point though about like beekeeping culture. It goes back thousands of years. I mean, early ancient civilization, they were using honey and making products with honey, bathing in honey, all of this. So the more modern tradition of beekeeping has very, very long roots in other civilizations, which is really cool. Thanks for pointing that out, Phil. Yeah, see this one, the honey that he has consumed makes him strong enough to compete in the Olympic Games. So if that's not a great advertisement for honey, exactly. I don't know what is.
We'll keep going.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the next one I have is the National Honey Board monthly kit, and so I love stuff like this. I remember as a kid I would get kits like that, like this.
This is also from the North Carolina Beekeepers Association. Correct?
Yes.
Right here. There you go. And here's
Oh, but that's the. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to get kits similar to that for like a myriad of different like organizations, but this is a kit you would get, and this is a little bit more serious. So this is this specific kit is focused on like not just the manufacturing, but kind of like the publication and like how to kind of promote your beekeeping business. So this is definitely, there's that president we were just talking about that. So this would be a letter that you would get as a kid as part of the association, but it's got so many different like items and things to play with. Like they have coloring images for kids. They have nationals. I didn't realize that's my birthday month, so I didn't realize September was National Honey Month.
Wow. Honey tip sheet.
Tip sheet. So this was probably close to what you were talking about, like different things you could do.
How to prepare with
100%. And I love how like they even have like publicity like PR releases and stuff like that. So like you can just send to like your local news. Where is that? Like like different news releases you could send to like your local news or local like grocery store to kind of get your honey in the aisles. This is like more like fast facts, like honey fast facts and stuff like that. And let's see, where is here? And this has like, this is where they talk a lot about this handbook. The handbook itself talks a lot about like beekeeping in America and like how the business behind it and the profits behind it. Talking about like education. There's even I don't know, I wonder if it's still around, but a honey hotline where you could ask technical questions about using honey with food scientists. So in it also kind of promoting U.S. honey overseas, and it helps with market research. Let me see.
So these would be distributed to anyone who was a member of the National Honey Board?
Yes.
Or perhaps anyone who is interested in distributing or working with bees?
Yeah.
Which is really, it's really cool. What are these?
So this might be my favorite part of this kit.
Oh.
So it's definitely a branding pamphlet to give your honey label appeal. You can sweeten your honey sales. Wow, the puns do not stop.
The puns are so good.
Yeah, they are good. It's like a pun run up in here. So again, fast facts, nutritional labels, country of origin, like, so these are things that they would try to tell you to put on your labels.
Oh, yeah.
To help with.
For production of honey.
I'm glad Virginia is enjoying this bee history. So yeah, this one was my favorite. Just kind of like it was a direct to like apiarists and to kind of help them figure out like what needs to go on a label, how to better promote it. So they talk about like different images to use for your honeys, and why you would use one over the other, or even using bears or stuff like that. So that was another.
It says to be or not to be.
Yeah, I did.
That is the question.
I did see that actually.
Never stop with the puns.
Yeah,
I think bees make it so easy to make puns about.
And even like a coloring book for kids. Oh no, this is it says a cookbook. So this is for kids. Yeah.
That's really sweet.
So
Parfait.
Parfait. Interesting. Honey care, take a dip.
It's like a honey dip.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
That's really good. Honey, come to my aid. Wow. Just honey make my morning muffins. So this is just puns in cookbook form. But again, super interesting in how they basically, I love this as like a kid of like how to promote yourself, how to help your business, how to get some reach in your local community. Mm-hmm. So, but like we've been saying this whole time, that not only is this beekeeping a historied profession and hobby, but that there's this incredible community, international, national, local, around it to help each other kind of promote yourselves. And I'm trying to. These even came with like food slides though. They're not. So this is just like a honey. It's hard to see with a honeycomb.
Oh, yeah, it's just product. It's like a product of honey with other foods around it that you could put in like an advertisement or a magazine. It is really cool that they provided all of this. And since I have processed this collection for the North Carolina Beekeepers Association, I'll say one of their core values, at least from my experience with the records, is education, youth education, and promoting beekeeping culture as something that's not very insular but more community led, which is really fantastic considering it is one of the largest beekeeping associations in the country.
I think it might be the biggest.
I think at the time that I processed it, it was. So
it was, okay.
There is also a history. There's a book that is the history of the North Carolina Beekeepers Association, and we have a copy of that in the libraries. If anyone's interested, they have a really, really sweet history, I think, in beekeeping. So that's one aspect of the Beekeepers Association that I wanted to point to was the education part of it. So next up we have...
So these are more kind of pictures talking about like bee anatomy. So this one was, let me see if I can zoom it again. This one I found super duper fascinating. Let's see if that'll focus. So that is a bee tongue.
That's good.
And so that just kind of was like a scary image for me to process if that's what a bee tongue looks like. But yeah, it's got like different like hairs, if that's what they are, their hairs and stuff like that. But I love this as like the anatomical like not early but like zoomed images. So here's like an image of a beehive. Actually, put this with color.
Oh yeah, that looks better. Wow. They're super zoomed in.
Yeah.
This one, the one in the back says 330 magnified. I'm not familiar with microscopes, given that I got a degree in English. But there is the capability now to get very, very, very microscopic with bee anatomy. And even beyond this, now you can get very, very close to the bee.
See if that'll zoom. And so this is a bee head at... The zoom is intense in this little antennae right here.
Wow.
But yeah, there are parts of the bee that I try to do some research on bee anatomy, and this just was not enough. But more kind of like I'll zoom out a little bit. More micro. They're definitely not macro photography, but it's not as zoomed in as like the tail one we showed you earlier. Yeah, but just kind of like up close images of bees. I was trying to figure out what part of the bee this was. Could not, because I could see it as being, some of these could have been like the back leg. This is kind of the behind of the bee. There's my first bee pun.
That's a good one.
So yeah, I just thought these were really interesting and lovely to look at like up close. Like this, I couldn't figure out. This could be a hair, like a incredibly like zoomed in image of a hair, but it could be something else. But I was trying to figure that out. But yeah, it's just really cool. Someone who's like really into the anatomy of bees. There's this collection is here for you to look at and peruse, and we even have like negatives from different 35 millimeter images of like zoomed up bees. So yeah, I always love that.
Do we know the dates for any of these? Is 1947?
So the ones I think that are dated, so if there's a date on it, there's 1947, so this is probably mid-century, mid-20th century and earlier. Or no, 21st century, right?
20th.
20th.
Yes. 20th.
Okay, yeah. 1950 and onwards.
So this is a little bit more of a modern or later approach to Dr. Mitchell's work with the glass slides. Like, you can sort of see, based on what we showed you with the glass slides, how the tools used for scientific research have improved enough to get so microscopic with the bee. And like I said, even beyond this time period, they can get so much closer to like microscopic animals and insects and the bees. We have a really great... I think that it's quite easy now to research bee anatomy when you have sort of the microscopic lens to be able to do so. And you can see that in the Department of Entomology's records. The way that they approach studying bees and insects has changed as the tools they have available to them have changed. Yeah. Which is really cool to see that difference between Dr. Mitchell's work and some of the later bee anatomies. So yeah, that's
That's
really
done.
cool little dive.
Now, did you want to do the wrap up, or did you want to look at the other folio?
I think we could wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll do wrap up. So I'm gonna try to type into, type into chat where the d.lib.
Yes. So we have a digital collections website that has a very extensive collection of photographs and certainly extensive collection of photographs related to university history. And so before we had started collecting materials for this beekeeping stream, I wanted to go and see what we had online. And so Phil's going to drop the link in the chat for you right now. The bulk of our bee-related collections that have been digitized relate to our extension work, the university's extension work with bees and beekeeping, and they range from the early 1900s till now. You can see sort of NC State's involvement in beekeeping and apiaries and beekeeping culture for a long time with their extension work specifically. There also was there has been more recent efforts to create apiaries and bee sanctuaries on campus. I'm not quite sure if those are on the digital collections website, but there are some links that we can share that show some of our more recent apiaries on campus. There was one on Centennial campus, Phil. I don't know if you ever. There was at one point a bee a sanctuary for bees on the Centennial campus. There's also one at the North Carolina Museum of Art, or at least there was the last time I'd walked past. So I have always been really impressed by NC State's efforts for bee education. I took beekeeping here at NC State. The University Archives is certainly working on documenting our culture and our history with bees. And there's also all of these efforts for sustainability of bee life, which is really, really great.
Definitely fits into like the university and the library's ethos of sustainability.
Sustainability, yes. Definitely.
So I put the link into the chat. I hope that works. But just on like the first like few images that populate, it's really cool. There's just zoomed pictures of bees carrying wax, which I've never seen, and old. I wonder if there's probably a date on, but old black and white photographs of bees entering new hives, bees in an apiary in different counties of North Carolina. There's a picture of a gentleman, and it just says Bee King, and I wonder like who. I have a lot of questions with that description. But yeah, we have a plethora of images and stuff on our digital d.lib digital collections and stuff like that.
The digital collections website also has a ton of materials demonstrating like exhibits at the state fair, at the North Carolina State Fair.
Yes,
that
like
feature honey, which I had referenced a little bit earlier with the Beekeepers Association. For as long as I've been going to the state fair, they've had a fantastic bee exhibit, and that is a long tradition at the state fair. Is sort of our extension workers and our local bee farmers coming together and selling their products, and also advocating for bees, which is really cool.
There's some amazing images from the state fair. Exactly what you're saying. The Department of Entomology. This is the one we're looking at right now. That you could see if you click on the link, or one of the links. Actually, I'll put it in the stream. But it's at the state fair, and it's just like different jars and different like ways to different promotions, different branding. But it's really really cool.
So major props
like
to.
Someone just said King Bee like Tiger King. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good question.
I would have to do a little bit more research on that, but not 100% sure. But yeah, Taylor's 100% right that there's a lot of documentation of the entomology department like at the state fair promoting honeybees and bees and stuff like that.
Is there a description for that photo?
For Bee King?
Yeah.
No, but it's from our University Archives collection.
Well, it's interesting to me, going back to my discussion on gender studies and beekeeping, that there's a crowned bee king, even though we know that it's a queen bee. So I wonder if there was like a king and a queen crowning for a bee. That's really fascinating.
So all I can tell from the metadata is that it is a alumni, because it's part of the alumni part of that collection. So yeah, but it just says, and it's written Bee King.
Bee King, interesting.
Could be a nickname. Could be a king, or queen-esque kind of thing. With these. But yeah.
So thank you to our digital collections team for getting all of these images out there and available for researchers. You're more than welcome at any time to follow that link and look up some of our bee-related materials. Phil, do you have the link to SCRC contact?
Yes, I'll put that in right now.
Phil is going to put in a link if anyone is interested in visiting special collections or working with our materials. We would be more than happy to assist. We have, as we've demonstrated today, a really, really great collection of bee materials, bee related. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, really, with what we had. We pulled some things that we personally found fascinating, but if anyone is seriously interested in entomology or beekeeping, we have a really, really great collection in our Department of Entomology, and their contributions have been really great through the years with university archives. So like I said, if you have any questions, Phil has dropped the link in the chat. Feel free to reach out and contact us.
And also put the email in there, too.
Yeah, he's going to put the email as well. Perfect.
But yeah.
Thank you for everyone for joining today. I hope you enjoyed our bee puns and our bee stories, and we look forward to seeing you. Yes, our bee outfits. We look forward to seeing you next time.